The Secrets of Movies and TV Shows is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
You're listening to The Secrets of Movies and TV Shows. Hi, I'm Angela Cialana, and you're listening to The Secrets of Captain Marvel, where we will photon blast into the hidden layers and deeper meanings of this Marvel movie. Joining me today on the panel are, first of all, we have author of Supergirls and Halos, Maria Johnson. Hey, Maria.
Hi, it's a pleasure to be here.
And we also couldn't do this without a Marvel geek, so we've got Andrew Hermes. Hi, Andrew.
Hello, hello. It's good to meet you. First time doing a show with you.
Absolutely. It'll be fantastic. I know for sure. And rounding out our panel of supreme intelligence is our fellow geek, Thomas Sanherho. How's it going?
It's going very well. I was worried you weren't going to give me a good intro giving him the Marvel geek thing. So
Dude.
I'm glad to get in there.
Won't let you down. All right. So first of all, before we get into this, hello, spoiler alert, people. This is called Secrets, so we're going to get real deep into this. If you have not seen this movie, why are you listening? Go see the movie, then come on back and listen. So I'd like to set the stage here, and let's talk about Captain Marvel outside of the movie for a sec. So we all have differing levels of familiarity with this character. I'd like to know what everybody's familiarity level was and what were your expectations going into the movie. So who wants to jump in first?
Okay, the water's cold.
I've read some of the comic books before, and so I go into all of these Marvel movies not expecting anything. That's one of the first things that I do is I just lay down what I know about any of the comics, and I'm ready to go in and be surprised. And they have not failed me yet.
Yeah, I'm slightly familiar with her in the comics. I haven't read like her like main runs in the comic books, but she's been like an auxiliary character in some big like Marvel event books. So I didn't know like too much about her, but I knew she was really powerful, and I knew that they would have to establish her as one of the more powerful characters in the Marvel universe.
Maria, what about you?
Well, I read her a little bit in the 70s when I was a kid, and then she just kind of fell off the radar for me for the longest time. And I didn't read too many comics as an adult until I would get together maybe sometimes with my son or something who, would bring something into the house and we'd talk a little bit about it. So she was completely off the radar, except that I do remember the comment that she was super hyped as like the strongest of the Avengers. And so that's kind of the expectation that I brought to the movie was, okay, so that's the hype, but how is this actually going to play out? So that's, I was kind of skeptical. I wanted to see what it was like. And to be honest with you, and we're not going to give spoilers to the Endgame movie, although she's featured in it. But I won't throw out any spoilers, but I kind of was expecting that there too. So, that's what I was hoping for, to see how she was going to be so spectacular.
Well, I think everyone has seen Endgame. We could spoil Endgame.
No,
I was going to say that's a big tease. That's a big tease.
This is just Captain Marvel spoilers here.
All right, fair enough.
I would like to cycle back around to that though. I after we get into the movie a little bit, one of the things that I want to talk about generally with the Marvel universe is that they've got a power problem now, and she's a big issue. Because they had to solve that power problem in Endgame, but won't go too much into that. But she is going to be a big problem going forward. Like, how do we make villains that are strong enough to face off with her by herself, first off, but then also with the Avengers team if she's a part of it?
Yeah, because you'd think that Thanos was like the guy, right? I mean, the way that they built up Thanos so much. And again, not going into spoilers there, but But at the same time,
want to say something about Thor here.
But he's another one after Ragnarok. You get to the end of Ragnarok, and he's a powerhouse, and it's a big issue that and they had to deal with. We can go back to the first one, because I think everybody's seen that one. It's not really spoilers at this point, but they had to deal with Hulk in that first encounter with Thanos, where Hulk couldn't show up because he was just too strong. So now we've got a few characters in the Marvel universe that are just they're too far on that power scale in. But I think going back to the origins, talking about where she comes from is a really good way to kind of build into that and talk about who she is and where she comes from. Yeah,
that's pretty good. And in those, I was just going to say that she gets her powers different ways in the different renditions of the comics.
Right.
And so I guess we need to stick with her actual fight in the movie.
Yeah, that was a huge part of this particular movie was a lot of origin stories. Not only an origin story for Captain Marvel, but also an origin story for the Avengers and S.H.I.E.L.D. in particular. And so, go ahead, Andrew. What were you going to say?
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say, I think, when we see all the cosmic elements, being revealed in this movie, we're kind of going more. And since her origin has a lot to do with, with her spending time, on another planet. And I know we'll get into her origin story in a bit. But I think in regards to like what kind of villains are going to create for her, I think that's the direction we're seeing Marvel heading towards, is more of a cosmic sort of direction, where you'll have characters that where their powers are almost limitless because they can be from any part of the universe or the galaxy, and we'll probably see villains of that nature pop up more. That could be a challenge for her.
Yeah, for sure. So getting into her power and her origin. So for myself, I really didn't know pretty much anything about Captain Marvel, but I did hear, like you said, Maria, that she was going to be like the boss, like crazy strong character. So what did you guys think of the way that she actually gets her powers? Because I know at the start of the movie, we see that she is powerful and she is introduced to us as a Kree, which threw me off because I was thinking Kree like from the DC universe, right? Is that right? Am I right with Superman? Or am I thinking of something totally different?
Oh, well, there's there's a lot of crossover in this stuff, and that's they all eat from each other the same food, because and they're always competing with each other about this kind of stuff too. So and even Captain Marvel, I think that's a property that exists kind of on both sides of the DC.
Yeah, Shazam. Marvel. Shazam is called Captain Marvel in the DC comics.
There you go.
Yeah. So
it can get really confusing, like going back and forth.
She matches also, I think, the Green Lantern.
Yeah,
like this space infusion kind of thing that that's going on. So
she is introduced to us as a Kree. We think that she's quote unquote on the good side, and we see that she has this thing kind of like behind her ear, almost on her neck, that. Originally, I think, as somebody coming straight on to the character, I had no idea where she was getting her power from. And I thought that the way that Jude Law's character, remind me of his name?
Yorog, right?
Okay.
Am I saying that right?
Yeah. Sure. Why not? So
yeah. It's Yonrog. Sorry. Yonrog.
Okay. So when he tells her that what's given can be taken away, then I thought, well, the thing on her neck or her ear or whatever is giving her the power that she has. So then, of course, later on, we find out what the origin of her power is. But what did you guys think about the way that they sort of teased that to us as the audience and how that was revealed? Did you feel like that was a satisfactory answer for the the almost invincible power that she has?
I really liked it. I'll be honest. This is one of those movies that I loved the fact that she got the power from somewhere else. But the real kicker for me in that moment when she gets that power and she takes it into herself is that, there's a lot of times where you have that kind of thing happen and you go, well, then they're not really a superhero. They just have some kind of technologic thing that made them super. And Spider-Man almost borders that cusp for me, where he got bit by a radioactive spider, and so that's why he is what he is. But with her, like, she got hit with this blast of radiation that should have killed everything, should have killed anything that came in its way. And there's no reason for her to be alive except that she's got something special inside of her that made her able to really embrace that power and to take it on and to use it as a gift for herself. That it infused her with power, but it should have killed her. And that was really impressive to me, the way they built it up all the way to that point. And then instead of it being cheapened by the fact that it came from somewhere else, it was made even stronger by that fact.
Yeah, I think I have an idea of why she is so special and why she absorbed that power rather than it overtaking her. But what do you guys think is so special about her as a person? Because I think, identity is a huge theme in this movie. Her identity of Kree versus human, of being a woman, which we'll get into. That's a huge theme as well. Whether she's alive or dead, who is she? Where does she come from? But there's this idea of there's some quality or a few characteristics that she has as a person that make her, like you said, Thomas, able to have that power. So what do you guys think that is?
Oh, that's a good question.
When I was watching the film, I was having this Father Roderick moment where I wanted to pull out a pad of paper and start taking notes, like in the movie, and it was and it was because I had this sudden realization that a lot of what was being discussed was grace. These things that these gifts that are given to us that we didn't ask for. Well, maybe sometimes we ask for them, but that are given to us for no reason, for no merit that we have other than that it's a gift. And I think that her pursuit of excellence in everything that she wanted to accomplish is part of what made her special. Her desire, that looking out. I mean, there's so much beautiful symbolism in here. She's in the Air Force, so it's like all of this open space is ready for her to conquer. So there's this thing about her that makes me think that she's just the possibility of humanity, of stealing from one of the other armed forces, being everything that she could possibly be. And I think that that's really the spirit of who she is. And that's why she ended up the most powerful, I think, is because she really sought that perfection. I mean, think about the battles when she was fighting with, and I'm sorry, but I just kept calling him Jude Law too. But when she was fighting with him, she really wanted to kick his butt. She really wanted to win. And so anyway, that's that pursuit of excellence, of winning, of excelling.
Yeah, I think I agree with most of what you guys said. There could be theories as to how she survived that blast, that we might discover in a future movie.
Sure,
like
good
maybe
point.
it turns out that she was, half Kree all along or something like that. I know in the comics sometimes her, that's revealed about her or other iterations of Captain Marvel. Or it could just be, what the central theme of the movie is that, she was a hero all along and she had those traits and those qualities. And, as we've learned throughout all the Marvel movies, all the, that power coming from, an Infinity Stone. The Infinity Stones are usually drawn to people that have those sorts of qualities, whether they're whether they're human or not. If you remember in one of the lesser Thor movies, Thor: The Dark World, I forget the name of that stone off the top of my head right now.
It was the reality stone. That one was the Aether, I think was the
Ether. Yeah, exactly. Well, Natalie Portman's character gets consumed by it, and she was able to handle it. But it had adverse effects on her, obviously. But she survived it. So I think, maybe we'll learn something going forward. But I think right now we'll just whether more of that will be revealed, we'll see in the future movies. But right now we can just at least our short answer could be, well, she was the rightful person to sort of have that power, and it was earned.
So I picked up on a central theme of humanity being important to her obtaining that power. Is there was even a line towards the end where she's fighting Yanrag, if I'm saying that right, and she says, "You're right, I'm only human." And then there's that montage of her getting up after she's fallen so many times.
Yes.
And then she's able to just, overtake him. And so I think I don't think she's going to end up being half Kree or anything like that, because I think they really played up this idea that her part of the reason why she is who she is because she embraces what makes her human.
Right. Which was a really powerful scene. Oh my gosh.
Oh, it is very beautiful, and it speaks to an element of our humanity where classically, like in literature, when you're talking about the hero, what characteristics does the hero have? And primarily it is that they have some aspect, some quality that helps them to rise above their fellow man. And in a different context, it's also heroic virtue. That she has these other qualities of fortitude, that persistence that she had, that made her stand up. Her ability to judge things, and prudent. I mean, I could go into the whole thing about the virtues that she holds, but they all lead to that heroic moment when she can rise and be representative of the human race and be representative of who we can be too.
Right. And that it's embracing that weakness. It's embracing that, the realizing that I'm going to fail, realizing that I'm not perfect, realizing that I'm not flawless, but that doesn't matter. That's not what makes us human. What makes us human is getting back up, is accepting the responsibility of continuing even after we have failed.
So I did actually take notes, and I wrote down some lines in particular that have to do with this. So when at the beginning, after she's had the dream, quote unquote, and she is engaging in this, I guess, kind of practice combat with Jude Law, he says a few things that I think are really indicative of his character and who he is representing versus her in her humanity. So he says, doubt makes you vulnerable. Use control. Humor is a distraction. I want you to be the best version of yourself. Of course, he says that to her while he's lying to her about who she is and where she comes from. And later on, she says, I made you the best version of yourself. And ultimately, he talks a lot in lies, and she even calls him out on it. And I think, since you brought up grace, I saw a lot of biblical themes in this movie. Just the fact that in that final scene where she tells him, you lied to me, he's wearing a green suit, and she's not. And it's almost like he's a representative of the serpent, and that she is embracing her true humanity and not what she's been told, the identity that she has been told that she is, but ultimately who she's discovered, who she really is. So just throwing that out there.
Beautiful. I love it. You might even say that she's wearing some Marion colors with all that blue and a little bit of red.
Blue and a little bit of red. There you go.
Nice. So also, with this whole embracing who she is, there is, and I think this also ties into the human aspect of it, this theme of her womanhood. And, we get that montage towards the beginning also of her as a little girl and these different pivotal moments in her memory where she remembers being told, you're going too fast, right? When she's driving the car. You're not strong enough when she's training in the military. You're too emotional, right? So all of these things tie into her being a woman. And for me personally, I'll ask you, Maria, how you responded to that montage and that whole theme. But for me, that really, really struck a chord with me as a woman, because I think most women have those experiences where as a little girl, you have people say stuff like that to you. And even as a woman, of course, as a grown woman, you have that as well. So for me, it was, with DC, we had Wonder Woman, and I had kind of my girl power moments in that movie. And they were different from the girl power moments, I think, in Captain Marvel. And I really appreciated this whole idea of her being human, and being a woman and rising above the challenges that she faced. So, Maria, what were your thoughts?
Oh, I really agree with you. I'm a little bit older than you, just a little bit, just a little bit. And so I was an athlete as a little girl, right into, as a woman in college. And so I, saw the benefit, for example, of Title IX that opened up a little more money for our athletic programs and things like that. Oh my goodness! And I heard it all the time, and especially I think maybe even in my Hispanic culture, where go put on a dress and serve your daddy kind of thing. And so I heard it all the time, and I also had that special connection, I think, with Captain Marvel that was different, not better necessarily, but different from the Wonder Woman experience, because I was kind of caught up in Wonder Woman's feminine genius, if you will, that love was leading her. Whereas in Captain Marvel, I mean, there were moments when, yes, it was about a woman power kind of thing, but for the most part, it was her humanity. And does it matter that she's a woman or a man in this role? And I really appreciated that too. She had a job that she wanted to do. She had a goal that she wanted to accomplish. There was a world to save, and she went and did it. And she managed to do it by having normal relationships with other people, by overcoming obstacles. And it wasn't about, here's a chick flick. It wasn't here's a are we doing another woman centered, hero moment here, but rather that she was just a human being. And that's what I really appreciated about this.
Yeah. So I'm curious to get the guys' take on this too.
That was beautifully said. And I think the whole, again, the theme of the movie is like you said, it's more about her humanity, and it's really her just like accepting who she is, like discovering who she is, because most of that was suppressed. Her memories were suppressed, her powers were suppressed. But seeing her become aware of herself and spending that time back on Earth helped her realize the type of person she was, and the types of qualities that she had, and she just accepted them. And she said, I'm fine the way that I am, and I don't need any Kree knowledge or any artificial intelligence telling me what to do, or telling me what type of person I am. I have, she had like her reuniting with her best friend. I think those scenes were pivotal in realizing who she was. And then ultimately, I know we'll get on to later parts of the movie when she's helping the Skrulls out. She's realizing, like, you know what, this is who I am, and I'm going to embrace it. And obviously we see that where she literally gets rid of the green Kree suit and embraces her literally her own skin, and if you will. So yeah, I think it was a beautiful way to sort of tell her story without it being too cliche, because usually we'll see it go the way of someone learning new skills or new traits, or not really discovering who they already are. So it was a nice unique twist onto the superhero origin movie.
Yeah, I went and saw this with my wife, and that was one of the questions I asked her, like right afterwards, like because there's all the talk. I mean, all the talk about this movie has been, it's a relatable female character, and it was a big about the female character, and I've never been bothered watching people of different backgrounds be heroes and being able to relate to them. And I know that that's one of those things that's, as a guy, I have the advantage of I've seen 100 guy movies. And so coming into a different perspective for me is not as impactful. I watched Black Panther. I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. It told a really unique, very different story that I could relate to. And this movie, same way. I felt, I felt really empowered. I walked out of this movie feeling really great. And I asked my wife, like, so, okay, what's the difference? What's the perspective shift here? And her answer was just, it really kind of encapsulated what this movie did well. And it didn't worry about the fact that she was a superhero. It didn't try and justify the fact that she was a superhero. It didn't even really care about that. That was all secondary to the fact that this was a person who had a lot of really interesting growth inside of herself. And she said that the most touching moments in that movie were the moments where she was sitting with her friend, because my wife could see in that the moments where she was sitting with her friends. And she just felt so empowered by the relationship that they had and how much they spoke to the better parts of each other and encouraged each other. And that really was the biggest thing that she walked away from that movie feeling. And she immediately called her friend afterwards and was like, oh my gosh, I saw this and I've thought of you and it was so great. And so, and that's, I think it's such a cool perspective to get, that it's, that feeling of of the relationship, the connection with other people was so important to this character and to who she was. And I loved Wonder Woman. I thought Wonder Woman was a great movie, but where you guys are saying this is a totally different kind of movie, I felt like Wonder Woman was like a rah girl power movie, where this one was more like, this is a hero movie where the hero happens to be a female, and the character itself was so much more important than just the fact that it's a superhero. And so you really got a sense of Carol Danvers. And I really like, probably my favorite part of the movie is that she never accepts the Captain Marvel thing herself, because that wasn't about her. That's the title of the movie, but that's not, this is a movie about Carol Danvers and learning who she is. And that was really, to me, getting that perspective from my wife leaving the movie theater was really great.
Yeah, that's a beautiful analysis of it, because it really does hit on the human relational aspect of it. Is that we're no man is an island, and we need to be able to relate to each other, and I think that they captured that very well, and it really informs the way that she behaves toward the Skrulls too, because once she sees their family unit, I mean, I think all bets are off with the Kree in that. I mean, not that it wasn't gone before, but that she really takes on that risk to save that family unit.
So let's go ahead and dive into that, since you brought it up. The whole aspect of the Skrulls and their assumed place in the story at the beginning is that they are imposters, that they are evil, that they're taking over these different planets and they infest them. And so that is our impression. And I think what adds to that impression is that they are shapeshifters. And so they can I guess, sort of get away with that whole imposter hideaway type of idea. But, you know, I like how there was some humor in Telos, how he actually approaches Captain Marvel, Carol, and sort of says, hey, you know, here I am, and actually tells his side of the story. Were you guys at all suspicious that there was something off with the story, the way that it was told to us, and how we were introduced to this race of people?
Sadly, Jude Law being in the movie at all because of the roles that he has taken lately, because he's just so clean cut. He's such, you know, and so like a lot of the roles he's been doing lately have been like this. Oh, he's the good guy. Oh no, he's the bad guy actually. And so like just knowing he was in the movie, I was like, he's going to be the bad guy. And so when they started off with the training montage, I was just like, oh, here we go. So I was a little suspicious from the get-go just because of the casting decisions, but I was willing to lay it aside, and still I liked the turn that it did take. It was a good way to kind of play it out.
Yeah, as far
I was
as
completely taken in.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I was completely taken in by Jude Law because he's just so precious.
Yes, absolutely. But yeah, as far as Jude Law's character, yeah, I knew before I even watched the movie, you know, for the same reasons, and also knowing that Yon-Rogg is a villain in the comics, and the Kree are evil in the comics, so you can never trust the Kree. So I kind of knew already that's the direction they were headed. But the real turn was Talos's character, and the Skrulls being you know, a sort of empathetic race. You know, in the comics they are all bad. This is a big turn in the comics, and it's actually, I don't have an issue with it right now, but I might have an issue with how they handle the Skrulls if in future movies they continue to make them the good guys. They did kind of, you know, Talos did kind of explain later in the movie that, you know, like with any race, there are, you know, there are good Skrulls and there's bad Skrulls. But you know, that turn I did not see coming. I mean, the Jude Law thing was obvious, but the Talos thing, no. So I thought that was a cool twist. And like I said, as long for me being you know, a fan of the comics, one of the big events, Marvel events, is the Secret Wars, where and it's surrounded by a huge war between the Kree and the Skrull. And obviously the Kree Skrull war is an ongoing thing, and that's talked about in the film. So as long as they, I think for me, just as a fan, if they explore the Kree Skrull war more, then I'd be totally fine with that turn. Because the Skrulls being shapeshifters, they have real potential to be some really cool villains. I mean, they're in Secret Wars. I mean, a lot of our favorite heroes turn out to be Skrulls. So seeing like a Captain America be a Skrull, you know, in a future film would be a cool thing to see, or something like that. So, yeah, hopefully, you know, that's where they go in the future, but that's just me being, you know, a fan, and that's my little fan fiction for the future of Marvel.
I think it's not a bad idea though, because it deals with the power problem in a very interesting way. You can't just blast your way through your opponents. You have to really kind of pick, and you saw that a little bit in the Captain Marvel movie where, you know, they had to tease out, they had to use a lot more intelligence to tease out who was who. And there were a couple of those scenes with Fury where he's his director's standing there talking to him, and he kind of has an inkling of what's going on, and then he drops a couple of good questions that really let him know, oh, this is not the guy that I think it is.
Like we did in Havana.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah, so I know Maria loves that.
My favorite line in the movie.
The Cuban among us. So was I the only person to pick up on an immigration kind of theme with the Skrull
Oh no, that was pretty
definitely
obvious.
felt that.
I think,
Okay.
No,
yeah.
that was absolutely.
Okay, I was just
the
wondering. Am I just totally
No.
caught up in the news? But yeah, what did you think of the way that they kind of drew those parallels with, obviously what is really has been at the top of the minds of Americans, but also, I mean, really the whole world right now, immigration and refugees, who's bad, who's good, who should we let in, who should we not let in? What did you guys think about all that?
Oh well, putting my fan service aside, I kind of liked how it was presented. I don't think it was pandering too much in the film. I think it's just it's common sense that a consequence of war is you're leaving innocent people either innocent lives being taken or innocent people having to flee the country, in this case flee their planet. So I think that was a great sort of creative way of showing, like, yeah, the Kree Skrull War is is an actual war. It brought some humanity to it. It's not like just two alien races fighting each other. We're able to it brought it to a sort of relatable level for the audience. And I think that it also has the way they left it open ended. It's like, well, the war is still ongoing. It wasn't resolved, and then that kind of explains what her absence in between this movie being set in the 90s and all the Marvel movies starting in 2008. So I thought it was a good way of like it was again explaining why she was gone all that time and sort of bring a new sort of twist to the Skrull race in the Marvel universe.
There was another element in that that I just found delightful, and that is the way that the children got along at the end, and I think that speaks to how we as adults have these expectations and we create these sometimes bigoted, certainly biased ideas. And yet the kids were happily exploring each other and sharing with each other. And so I thought that there was also a little element of hope for the future there. And just a very small piece, but I think significant.
Yeah, I like the I go back whenever I look at a good heroine lead, a good female lead character. I go back to 1986 Aliens movie, Sigourney Weaver's Ripley character, and like she's the benchmark for me. That character is the one that you have to live up to, and it's interesting because this movie does it again because you have the humanity of the character in it, but then you also have it goes back to that motherly caring for someone, and we miss that a lot in modern superhero movies because we have these superheroes that are just there to win the fight, and there's so little that they're protecting that it's really just about a big slugfest, and that's all it is. And Marvel's been escaping that. They've been gradually moving outside of that. And I think they saw some of the value in that when they first just destroyed New York City with the first Avengers movie. And they went back and they're like, oh, okay, how are we going to justify all this stuff? What are these people really defending? And then they started building into Iron Man's character, who is Iron Man fighting for? Not just what is he fighting or why is he fighting, but who is he fighting for? Who's on the back end of that fight? And you see that kind of culminate in this movie where you have this really good, solid female character who's caring for a family. And it's a family of refugees that are down and out that need the protection because they don't have any other way to fight for themselves. And she's standing in that gap. She's standing up and she's really coming there. And that it harkens back to that character of Ripley in the Aliens movies where she's, she's protecting. She's got that motherly protection, a motherly sense of protection going for her.
I think it was interesting that this theme was explored with the Skrull in particular because, they are shapeshifters, and so they can change into, some other form and I guess deceive people. Whereas Captain Marvel, her strength and that protection that you're talking about really comes from her just seeing them as they are, what's right in front of them. And the Kree don't see that, even though the Kree are, this mighty race of warriors or whatever. And, they're supposed to be strong and got all the technology and, they have the supreme intelligence or whatever. But, they can't see what's right in front of them, which is people that are suffering and don't have a home, and are not a threat to them. So I thought that was interesting that they chose this particular type of alien to explore this theme.
Empathy is an essential characteristic for success of the human person, for the growth of the human person. Without empathy, I'm sure that DSM has classifications for people who lack empathy, but one of those is that you become a sociopath if you cannot empathize. And so I think that's, the whole relational aspect of these characters, and even, back to the battle in New York. I mean, if you look at the end scenes in that movie, they're sitting around having a meal after everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Remember the chicken shawarma scene?
Yeah.
What makes the Avengers strong is that they each bring their gifts to the table, so to speak, and can pick up where someone, is weak, or where someone's strength is what's needed in the moment. And I think that it's seen beautifully in Carol too. Especially in Carol, since she is the greatest of the Avengers, or so they say.
So one of my favorite moments and it's a real character moment, is at the end when she does photon blast Yanrog. She also says, "I have nothing to prove to you," and she actually offers her hand to him. And I love that. Yeah, she does, blast him in that really humorous, moment, knocking out his little speech that he's trying to give. But, it's also, like you're saying, it's who she is, it's what she's about, and she has that empathy, even for someone who lied to her, as long as she knew him. And, she speaks the truth. She says, I have nothing, to prove, but then she offers her hand and she sends him on his way. And she says, tell the Supreme Intelligence I'm out to end the war, the lies, all of it, and so that was one of my favorite character moments for Carol. As we're getting into actually, I can't believe we've been almost talking for the hour here, and I feel like we've barely scratched the surface with this movie. But just to kind of dive into a couple of the fun things that we saw in this movie, since we've been talking about all these really deep and thoughtful themes. So what were some of your favorite 90s throwbacks? Because we've got to talk about those.
Oh, man.
Oh, so many.
Oh, the Blockbuster and the payphone. My favorite was probably Coulson. Just having Coulson show up and the way that he's interacting with everything, because it's a very young version of him. It's before he goes through all the stuff that kind of hardens him into who he becomes later as we know him. It was such a great moment to have him kind of show up in this strip mall that is just full of 90s nostalgia. And it's a place anybody could have been in the 90s. And you're like, yep, I remember that. Radio Shack, Blockbuster, everything's here. So yeah, but him
beeper.
showing up. Oh yeah, the beeper. Yeah. But yeah, I thought the characters that they put into that, because Fury's Fury. Fury's kind of a non-time related character, but Coulson very much fit that moment of like, we see a younger version of him that's still growing into the agent he's going to become, and he really he ticked all the buttons for me. It was really a great performance and a great script that they wrote for him throughout that whole setup. That
was great. I just loved everything about the cat and Nick Fury picking out an eyeball. I think I feel that way about Fury.
Yeah, I actually didn't like the eyeball thing. That was like one of my. That's a small gripe, but I just thought it was kind of lame that was the way he lost his eye. But going back to all the 90s nostalgia in the film. I mean, yeah, like you said, the Blockbuster movie. I mean, the Blockbuster, her crash landing into Blockbuster. Sorry, and the Alta Vista web browser and the the dial-up internet and waiting for the CD to load and the flannel shirts and oh my gosh, the troll dolls and there's so many things. And then you have one of the final battles. You have that No Doubt song playing. I'm Just a Girl.
I'm Just a Girl.
That was a good one. Yeah.
I thought it was a good choice. But I think my favorite thing, if I had to pick one thing that was my favorite, was I thought this was the best Stan Lee cameo that they've done in any Marvel movie, because it literally goes back to his actual cameo in Mallrats, and it's him practicing his lines for that film. So it was a really, really cool, creative way of doing a Stan Lee cameo that I really enjoyed, because I know not a lot of people got it, in the theater, because, not too many people have seen Mallrats, especially the younger folks. But that's a movie I remember, and I remember his cameo, and I think and that was his first film, so it was kind of cool. Harkening back to that.
Yeah, for sure. My favorite was No Doubt. I know on the other movie podcast that we have on SQPN StarQuest, we've got Dom and Father talking about how they didn't really think that the song fit in that particular moment, but I just thought it was like perfect. I mean, that was kind of like my fist pump moment of the movie. Because it just
Gwen Stefani I
was singing along in the theater when that song came on.
So let me put it in a different context. I think I'm as old as those other folks you were talking about, or a little older. I was teaching high school at the time, and I had I taught journalism, so I had an open lab, and the kids played that song on loop. That song, I don't know, was it an anthem for that time? I don't know. It was,
I would say so,
I remember it. Yeah, you think so? Oh my gosh, I remember that they would put that song on, and I would say, "Can you find something else?" And, over and over again. So yeah, I thought that was very well played there.
Well, there's just so much that we can talk about with this movie. I really enjoyed this movie. I've seen it twice, but I know I'll see it many more times. Guys, is there anything else that you are dying to get in to our secrets discussion here?
No,
I want to give all the spoilers for Endgame is what I want to talk about.
Well, one thing I will say is I have a lot of friends that were on the fence about this character and about this movie and about it coming out right before Endgame, and that were really concerned about her being, this character that just comes in and kind of steals the show. And I thought that the way that it was done, and this is the thing that I walked away from the movie with, was that moment where she says, "Yes, I am only human." And that for me was just the most powerful statement of just, we're only human, but man, can we do some really great things when we put our mind to it. That was the moment. That was like really the whole concept behind the movie. And that was the thing that saved the character for me, from this this apprehension that she was going to be overly powerful or going to steal the show from all of the work that the Avengers had done up to this point. I was not worried about it at all. I knew it was in good hands when they played that moment of humanity out in who she was and how it played into her identity.
Yeah, and I thought, again, the way the movie handled her and sort of explained at the end why she was gone all that time was really sort of the best way I think they could have explained, because she could always be, like the easy answer to all your problems, because of how powerful she is. But knowing that she has like, a cosmic side to herself and an earthly side to herself, she feels responsible for protecting the universe and not just planet Earth. So, again, not to spoil Endgame too much, but we see some of that resonate in Endgame, and I love how they dealt with her character in Endgame, because again, like you mentioned, with this movie, coming right before Endgame, it's like, oh, is she gonna just be like the easy answer for Thanos in that film? This character that we just got introduced to. But no, they handled her really well. Endgame really did focus on the original Avengers and didn't bring her too much into the story. I thought there was just enough, Carol Danvers seasoning in that film that needed to be there. And then the reasons for her in that film for why she wasn't, always present for every battle was a good reason as well. And then one last thing, we can't talk about this movie without talking about Ben Mendelsohn's performance. I thought, he stole every scene he was in, and he's one of my favorite actors working today, and he was he was hilarious. From all his different mannerisms, when he walked in, sipping on a soda. It was just watching him in that alien makeup drinking a soda was a treat. So I really want to say that before we wrap up.
Thank you for that. Maria, any final thoughts?
No, you guys, boy, you hit it on the nail on the head. Beautifully done.
Well, speaking of heroic people, I want to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible to create Secrets of Movies and TV shows, including Robert B., Peter H., Joshua R., Don C., and Andrew W. Thank you guys so much. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Movies and TV shows and all the shows at StarQuest. And you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. So that's it for us. What did you think of Captain Marvel and our discussion of it? What did we miss? Tell us your thoughts. Let us know by visiting sqpn.com/secrets or the StarQuest Facebook page, and leave us some feedback. Let us know. Send us an email, secrets@sqpn.com. All right, until next time, Maria Johnson, thank you for joining me in sharing the secrets of Captain Marvel.
Oh my goodness, what a pleasure to be here with you all again.
Andrew, wonderful to have you. Thank you for sharing your geekery and your comic knowledge with us.
Anytime, it's my pleasure. Thank you guys.
And Thomas, what a pleasure to have you on as well. Thank you so much.
It was wonderful to be here. Thanks.
And once again, I'm Angela Ciolana. Thanks everybody for joining us and listening to Secrets of Movies and TV Shows on StarQuest. See you next time.